Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So I have one more fluff piece that I want to get out the way before getting to the actual news. Explosive, gigantic, emancipatory. I'm using emancipatory. I don't break that out much. Emancipatory. I am not even going to explain it immediately. I'm going to let him explain it himself. I'm going to let the man himself makes the explanation first. Let me check my sound. Make sure this is going to the masses in the way that I think it's going to the masses. And yes. You would notice that my viewport or my box has changed a bit. The thing at the bottom, click the link for the description box for Super Chat Alternative. My entire channel has been demonetized, and so there's a link in the description box that if people want to give while the show is going, that's an alternative to Super Chat. Also, the people whose names are writing are the people who essentially gave less. So, all of you, I appreciate your help for the channel. Thank you very much. And by the way, me saying that is not, again, it's not a prod. It's more so a statement of reality of the way things are right now. All right, that's it. Big, explosive news from Star Trek. Take a look at the man himself. This is Patrick Stewart. Listen to what Patrick Stewart is about to say.
I'm eating. But who say to me, your show changed my life. Without Star Trek, The Next Generation, I might not be here. And that lies at the very center of what I have to tell you now. Jean-Luc Picard is back.
Jean-Luc Picard is back. Jean-Luc is back. He's back. He's coming back. Not a bullshit copy. Not some alternate universe. Jean-Luc Picard himself is coming back. He's reprising his role as Jean-Luc Picard. Yes! Emancipatory. I don't use that word often. But oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Look, one of the fascinating things about Star Trek that people miss sometimes is that when the original show came on, even Next Generation, it wasn't a war situation. Like, the show itself, if you notice, they would tackle one issue after the next. Homosexuality, violence, racial issues, issues of segregation, issues of overpopulation. You name it, they did it. Using and allowing people to have the distance of a third person perspective in order to analyze issues that are in their society itself. It's a third person perspective, so the person who's looking at it is not necessarily fully triggered in the way that they would typically be triggered. It's an amazing thing. It's one of those things that allows your society to lift themselves up higher. I mean, think about it for the moment. Anything that you want to actualize in a society, you first have to have some idea that it can be done. How do you accomplish stuff if you don't even know if you can accomplish the thing that you're talking about accomplishing? I'm making this point that shows like Star Trek has allowed people to look higher than what they currently are. Earth, from the perspective of the Starship Enterprise, that crew of that bridge was Earth. As long as the people of that bridge worked together and that ship worked together, they could deal with any problem that came up. That was the point. Next Generation, Jean-Luc Picard, for the most part, advanced those ends with a more sophisticated ship, more sophisticated crew, and less of this shoot by the hip mentality. They evolved as a next generation, or as a crew, and as a organization, meaning Starfleet. But again, you had this idea, same idea. As long as you work together, Again, this ship representing Earth, with Jean-Luc Picard representing the rational perspective or the human perspective. One of the most amazing things is the first episode of Star Trek, Next Generation. I don't know if people remember this, where Q puts Picard on trial. And on trial, what it boils down to is, you're animals. Look at what you've done to one another. You've murdered and massacred and killed and raped. You're animals. You are apes that just so happen to find the capacity of warp and fire and guns and whatnot. Why should you go into the cosmos? Why? Why? Picard is aghast by this. And yet, he's right. I mean, at the end of the day, Q has nailed something that Picard can't necessarily leave, which is humans past, which is where we are. Meaning, the critique that was being made and laid at the foot of Picard was essentially a critique of his own society, the current day society. And Picard, embarrassed, ashamed at the way human beings interact with one another. This is a fascinating show. It's an amazing show. And Picard is coming back and reprising his role is great. People were let down by Discovery for various reasons, but I would tell you one of the things that took you off right off the bat. Think of all the shows of Star Trek. What is the most touching relationships that takes place within the show, even between men? Captain and First. Number one. He doesn't even call him Commander Riker. Not most of the time, he calls him number one. That shows this kind of relationship that these guys have. Janeway and Chakotay didn't even start off the voyage together. And yet they ended up being extraordinarily close to the point where you could have even seen them being in this relationship at one point. And even going to Cisco. Cisco's a little different, but Cisco, I would argue, had Kira, who worshiped him in some odd degree because of the wormhole aliens and the way him being the emissary. I guess I'm making the point. Those relationships were one of the things that people loved about the show, because ultimately it allowed you to find this kind of human quality of commonality that you yourself can recognize, whether it was Spock and Kirk, and again, whether it was the other ones I named. Within the first episode, if I'm not mistaken, before even a commercial break, or after the first or second commercial break, you establish a relationship between a Vulcan and her captain, and you have that Vulcan attacking the captain. This shocks the conscience. Can you imagine this? Can you imagine Spock attacking Kirk unprovoked? No, nobody could ever imagine that. Can you imagine number one attacking Picard? Number one would chew his own arm off before he would let that arm be used to slap Picard. And within the first few commercial breaks, she's attacked her captain. It shocks the conscience. It's a cynical portrayal of Star Trek. I don't like it. Now, yes, the show is engaging, but they start you off in a wartime situation which bastardizes what Star Trek is. At the very least, what Star Trek was. It bastardizes the meaning of the show. What the show is gets somehow diminished in the way they go about telling the stories of the new episodes. That includes the movie versions. I understand the movie versions are somewhat different, but still, it's the same thing. If you ask people who are hardcore fans of the series, one of the reasons they were hardcore fans is because they were able to look into space in this way that wasn't cynical, where everybody was just out to get this kind of capitalistic way of, this dominance. Where there was a certain order to things, where people were human beings. They were free human beings. They had their needs met, and in having their needs met, they were able to be free. Understanding that freedom is not a singular thing. That there is no such thing where you're going to be free when you're not trespassing on somebody else's freedom. Meaning, freedom is always going to be a collective affair. Yeah. Star Trek is an amazing thing. It allowed us to see us in various other permutations and other ways. And allowed us to look at this kind of emancipatory future of human beings getting their shit together. Being rational. Love it. Jean-Luc Picard is coming back. All right. Let's see. Who's here? I'm not going to keep this one long. This is just a heads up. when you say all religions are the same, you ignore the basic religions. Taoism and Tao, all losses are victories, all Hillary Clintons are perfect, and all donors are amazing. Tao is the Tao of Tao. The Tao of Tao. When I read that at first, I was like, okay, maybe, okay, fair enough. I don't think all religions are the same. I don't mean it that way. I just mean I'm asking a certain question of, these are thought forms or ways of organizing their thoughts into certain ways of beliefs about going their way in the world. Meaning whether it's religion or whether it's capitalism, all of these, it's ideas on, you have this open game space. What do I want to do with all this time in this game space? Well, I want to organize myself in a way to do something. Okay, what do you want to do? Well, in some cases, I want to worship God. Great for you. Go worship God. In another case, I want to make money. I want to worship at the altar of the invisible hand. That's what I want to do. Well, the problem is, in the case of the worshiping at the invisible hand, there are consequences. Because him worshiping at the case of the invisible hand affects other people around him in the pursuit of that dollar. Which, by the way, is not real. Just like the God that the other guy is not real, that he's worshiping. I don't mean it for everybody, but I feel you. That the Tao of Tao, Peter Tao. Tao must stay. That's hilarious. That sounds like Balthazar. So, but I can't tell from this. But I think it is. I think it's Balthazar. The Tao of Tao. That's hilarious. All right, I'm not going to keep this one long. This one has gone 11 minutes. Patrick Stewart is back. Patrick Stewart is back. All right, guys. If you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through Patreon. Thanks, everyone. I'll be back in a few. I have a lot of these that I want to get through. This is just, I'm getting the smaller ones out the way early. So, see you shortly. Bye-bye.